So, okay, I'm having a beautiful time here with this, my slides. I do apologize. I'm like, good Lord, it's like, come on, guys. Anyway, let's continue. So, survival is about making hard decisions and literally preserving your business. And we may end up being like startups. So, this does give you a chance to retool your practice, to put it into a different position, if you will, to create the practice you somehow got away from you. Let me give you a pretty dire, unfortunate example is that many practices, in fact, 90 to 95% of them are operating on anywhere from 70, 80% overhead. Well, that doesn't give you much room. And something that should hammer home with private practitioners is, how is it that corporate dentistry is able to exist? Because they squeeze profit where individual practitioners, even small groups, do not. They look to, pay a dentist 30% or thereabouts and squeeze somewhere between 15 and 20%, and sometimes a little bit more profit out of the business. And that's because how they operate. These are, they make some hard decisions, but they're also thriving. You'll see more of them coming. By the way, I think that this time is going to be a time where you'll see the corporate dentistry rise even more. But for now, it is about surviving, and you got to make hard decisions. And there's really not much choice to that. You have to make those hard decisions. So we all know that, and this shows a graphic showing South Korea, China, and Italy, and the mortality rates. And what, if you're over 80 in Italy, you're in trouble. So it's over 20%. Part of that, by the way, and as far as Italy is how they have one-payer systems. By the way, this is from McKinsey and Company. So we know if you're older, you're more at risk. If you're younger, you're less at risk. However, youngers can still be asymptomatic and carry it to grandma and grandpa. So that thus social distancing and staying away from grandma and grandpa is in place. Anyway, a lot of people are scared. And of course, you'll recognize this from a 1943 paper by Abraham Maslow, where he talks about the needs of people. And they first have to be safe. They've got to feel secure. They've got to have their physiological needs taken care of. And then their psychological needs taken care of. But the greater the danger, the more people switch into the lower motivators, if you will. Right now, our patients need to be reassured. They need to be given confidence in what we're doing, which is another conversation because we don't know at this point what type of personal protective equipment is going to be required, what's going to happen. But one of the estimates is that when we go back, that we are going to be with much smaller staffs. We'll talk about using this time to actually upgrade your staffing. But right now we need to provide assurance, confidence, and a certain level of optimism based in reality. We can't be much more than that. We also have to think in terms of, how am I going to lead my group? How am I going to lead my patients? And, create something better than what was. And there's no question that we got a different time. So the missing piece here is communication. You really need to outflow a lot of communication. You really can't overdo it with your team, with your patients. And I have some recommendations related to your patients. But here's some resources to track the virus. Those two links will take you to where it says information is beautiful. That does done infographic style. and where it said Worldometers info coronavirus will give you access to real-time updates. I'll provide these slides to you later on, so you don't have to worry about that. So we talked about the fecal oral transmission, and we have to teach potty hygiene to patients. You know, for a GI guy, it's kind of like, okay. But as a dentist, we don't want them getting infected as a result of stools from someone who is infected. So this is another reason to be very wary, actually avoid public bathrooms completely, because you just don't know what's going on in there. So here's some resources, keeping kids busy. Again, I will give these to you in the slides. The bottom one is a list of, I guess, probably 150 different things to do with kids. The Khan Academy is there. Some school systems, by the way, are just continuing online. I know in Richmond, they're having a hard time with that. In New York City, they're actually much better suited. So my daughter and her two children who've fled to our house on the river from New York have school every day. But anyway, there's a number of things here to keep kids or grandkids busy, so I thought you might like that. So my suggestion on survival is prepare for the worst. One of the big situations is, when do we go back to work? When does practice begin again? And I think that the 10-week estimate that was given by Bill Gates is probably accurate. I don't think that Virginia said we're stay in place kind of home quarantine was by accident. I think that's a pretty good estimate of where we are. It'd have been nice to go back by Easter, but I think everybody, well, most people, I think, who were following this knew that probably wasn't going to happen. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And we really don't know what's going to happen. How's that for encouraging news? It's okay. I think it will be better. I think, though, you have to create a crisis plan. And the crisis plan is going to need to cover lots of different things. And it's going to have to be changeable, adaptable, based upon what we discover is going on. Because there's still a lot of uncertainty. We just don't know things. I mean, when does this curve get flattened on the rise of the epidemic? When is it going to be allowed to go back to work? Or what restrictions are going to be on dental offices related to infection control? Generally speaking, dental offices have been better than medical offices related to this. Are we going to have to be wearing N95 mask? Even the N95 mask is not a panacea, since the COVID-19 virus is smaller than even that. But a crisis plan is needed. How many of you have created some type of crisis plan already? Well, if you haven't, Michael raised his hand. Thank you for raising your hand. So, are you, on my screen, I get Q&A, but no chat space right now. So just put that stuff in the Q&A for the moment. So Michael, what have you created a bit of a plan already, or advising? So since you're doing some consulting, have you advised clients on some things to do specifically?
Oh yeah, for sure. I've created a plan for myself and advising clients to do likewise. It's challenging, as you know, because everybody wants a formula.
Right.
And everybody's situation's quite different. So unless you really know that situation, it's really hard to create a comprehensive plan.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know,
Okay.
private clients are a little bit easier because I know more about them.
Sure. Absolutely. And I think you're dead on that. Everybody's in a little bit different place. One of the things that is likely is that there's going to be some practices that go out. There's going to be others that are just ready to sell. That'll be in the opportunity section that we won't be doing in this one, but we'll take up another webinar. So I think you need to appoint a chief of financial details. If you are extremely detail oriented, this might be you. It might be your spouse. It might be the one staff member that is still, taking phone calls, operating the computer, phone up with insurance and billing, etc. But you need to have a person whose role is to make sure that all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and that you are getting every benefit coming to you. And there are quite a number of them. And we're going to go over those today. But if you haven't appointed someone, even yourself, and then you basically create some checklists that they need to go through, some things might fall through the cracks. So it is time to cut, and we got to talk about 3 versions of cutting. So a bush hog is a big mowing machine, as you know, used to reduce weeds in a big old field. It's usually behind a tractor, and it cuts virtually everything down. For the most part, that's how you need to think about your expenses. A lawnmower, for lawns, it'll cut the grass, and it's very nice. The mistake that people are making is they're cutting their expenses with either snippers or lawnmowers when they need bush hogs. And I say this, you can always pick it back up again. So wherever you can cut, do cut. And we're going to talk about that. So the mindset is cut, and when in doubt, cut. If it can't be cut, can it be delayed without penalties and interest? So one of the actions for you to put on your action list is start with your banks, mortgage company, credit card companies, vendors, lenders, and landlords, and speak to them all about delaying interest or payments for 90 days. Thing is, we don't know what people will do, what these bigs will do. Many will say yes. For one thing, they're more likely to say yes to you because of your credit history. So be very proactive here because it can save the bacon. Of course, now, the government has issued a number of rulings about you can't evict. I saw this morning about in some cities, we're not paying our rent. Well, that's not going to go down. But anyway, you've got to cut expenses. So let's talk about what you can cut. All the unnecessaries. I do suggest this: take all the expenses related to handling the coronavirus and put them in a single item on your P&L. You need to detail it, but put on a single item so you can track what it's cost you in handling COVID in your practice. So this came to me from Dr. Michael Maroon. I'm going to put it here, so I want to give full credit and attribution. Stop all your auto payments. That can also be on your credit cards. Stop all your ACH withdrawals from your bank accounts. You have to contact your bank about doing this. You have a practice equipment or loan or lease, or contact your lender immediately and ask for deferment or extension of time to pay your bill. One suggestion, by the way, is that on any time-based loan, say a 5-year loan, 3-year loan, whatever it might be, ask the lender to just add 3 months at the end of the loan. And they're more likely to do that than not do that. So see, again, contact your landlord, credit card companies, asking to waive fees and interest. Or if you can make minimum payments, contact your supply companies and ask them for more time to pay for any balances. This could also include lab. Yes, Michael.
Just a word about the landlord. I find that lots of people don't appreciate the leverage that they actually have now as a tenant, because the landlord is looking at the value of their building and they want long leases because that increases the value of their building. And if they're looking to borrow against that building, they need people in the building. So a tenant is actually in a great position right now to renegotiate their lease so that you can get perhaps a lower rent at a longer term.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
But people who are tenants and have never been building owners or landlords don't understand the dynamics there. So
right.
If you're a tenant, you're actually in a good position right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. And I think that it's something that we need to be aggressive on. Just as a kind of a little short poll here, how many of you, and just put it in the chat, yes or no, have done all of these so far? Or some of these so far? How's that? Just type in the chat what you've done so far, or some, if you've done some or all of this. Partial, okay. Some, yeah, not aggressive enough. You know, that's true for most. You do have to be, you've got to think bush hog. This is not snippers or lawnmowers. Got to be very aggressive with this. If there's something on this list that you have not had a chance to do, please do. Brian, good for you on what you're doing there. And it's just things to protect yourself. Those who don't get aggressive with playing defense are going to end up losing money they didn't have to lose. And so that's what the big deal about this is. So anyway, yeah. And David, yep. So David says, I worked on the big ones. I'm working on the smaller ones now, as you should. Credit card companies are typically going to be fairly liberal with some and not so with others. So you've had a good history of them. They're going to be more likely to waive fees and interest and allow you some time. The reason I said prepare for the worst is because we don't know how long this is going to last. We hope that summer comes along and the other coronavirus issues, as they did with SARS and MERS, kind of go away. We don't know if it's going to come back in the fall. We just have to prepare for the worst because we don't know. And the key is to be nimble about the whole thing. All right. So, all right. And pause any non-essential services, laundry, cable TV, magazines, stop advertising for a couple of months. I'm going to talk about this for a moment. Right now, all people can think about is safety, protecting their loved ones, and trying to wait out this waiting period. At some point, particularly when the curve gets flattened, it'll be time to turn on your marketing juice, if you will. Right now, it is very cheap to advertise on Google pay-per-click and on Facebook pay-per-click because so many people disappear. And they've disappeared simply because people aren't buying stuff. They're trying to preserve. Now, we're not in that business, but if you're in the business of selling masks or hand sanitizers or toilet paper, you're very popular. But for our business, it's hard to take dentistry and doing dentistry online. But Michael, I'm going to ask you a question since I know you've looked this up. The teledentistry. You care to speak about that for a moment?
Sure. You look at trends, and there's no question that telemedicine is going to really take off in a big way.
Yes.
And teledentistry will, if you can figure out a way to do it. And I know lots of people are now scrambling to do just that. In dental sleep medicine and TMJ, it actually lends itself quite well to doing part of the process via telemedicine. So you're going to hear a lot more about that. I don't think it's something you jump into right now, because I think you don't want to put all your eggs in the basket of a company that's not going to last, and it's hard to tell right now who are going to be the winners and who are going to be the losers.
Right.
So you have to be a little strategic. But communication. Right now, the government has relaxed the HIPAA laws. So you can FaceTime with your patients. You can Zoom with your patients, Skype. You can do all of those things. And I suggest, like you do, Charlie, that you do just that.
Yeah.
As much as you can.
Yeah. I do want to talk about patient communication for just a minute. I think you can share some of the information you've been provided here with your patients, but mostly they need to hear you. So pick up the phone and call them. They're there, and how you could even introduce the call. Hey, this is Dr. Anglis. When call and check on you, just say hello and see how you're getting along. And then, see what kind of help you can give them. Something we'll talk about later is what I call 5-minute favors, which have a disproportionate feeling of appreciation. We'll get that when we get to talk about patients. But the point is, we need to communicate with our patients on a regular basis during this period. Instead of shrinking it in, we need to expand it. Steve, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, about the equity loan. I haven't tapped into it at all. And I'm shocked that we may not be able to access it later. So
right.
We take the maximum amount we can out, because you start paying interest on it right away. I mean, you take out 50, 100, 200. How do you figure out what to take out?
Okay. So the key here is to have cash available to you. And yes, those home equity lines can be revoked at any time. So everybody's, again, a situation, and this might be a conversation with your accountant. I'm hopeful that all of you had a very active accountants who've been proactively contacting you, saying, I'm here to guide you through this maze, because you do need guidance through this maze. I haven't answered your question, Steve, because I can't. I don't have a good answer. I have an answer that is, what does your accountant tell you? And, one of the things that we have done is we've have substantial cash available to us. We also went and got cash that we, cash money we hold in our hand, just so we have that available. I'm hopeful we don't get to any of that, but, by tapping that line of credit, it could alleviate some worries about being able to pay everything you have to pay, even this time period when we're, shackled to our houses. but it's a very real thing that could occur. So, okay, let's continue. We'll see if I can figure out my slides here. All right. So the home line equipment, which Steve was just talking about, if you aren't going to be in your office to receive your mail, make sure it gets forwarded to your house, or have them hold the post office, deliver to the post office box, turn off all necessary equipment. The automatic thermostats, set them, lower them, obviously. Have someone from your team go through an insurance aging to see if there's any outstanding that should be received, and make sure that you submitted proper claims. So this is something that your business staff can be doing. Be very careful about the messaging that you give to patients right now. It does need to be sensitive to this pandemic. So there have been a number of marketers, advertisers, who haven't really changed their marketing specifically to match what's going on in people's minds. So if you still have messages and marketing going on out there, it would be wise to, turn it off or adjust it so it speaks to what's on the mind of your patients. So if you have an answering machine, make sure that it notifies patients, keep them updated. I know some of you, Strati, you're one of them who altered their social media channels to indicate what's going on, which is wise. So have your website company put a banner up on your page notifying patients about what's going on. Should you be scheduling patients now? Well, obviously there's emergency patients, and you have to decide whether you want to treat them or not. There are dentists who are being aggressive in this and setting themselves up as a, if you will, emergency center to treat patients that other dentists aren't seeing. I'm not going to pass judgment on that one way or the other, but it's certainly something that is you could do that. Didn't say you should do that. I just said you could do that. Anyway, you have to, your concept here is preserve your cash, because, first of all, you got now, but then when you go back, how much dentistry are you going to be able to do? Since 90% of your income comes from things that people don't really consider essential. How busy is your hygienist going to be? How many times are you going to be placing implants or doing cosmetic makeovers? We don't know that, but we do know it's likely to be less than what it's been. I think that's predictable. So even when you go back to work, you have to assume that your dental economy is going to be different than the regular economy, which by all other measures should rebound quickly. So the first thing is to cut like a champion before taking any loans or taking cash from your other repositories of money. So cut like a champion. Look, there is something that you have to do, and that is you have to survive. And survival here is going to be your willingness to make hard decisions. I will assume by this time most of you have either furloughed or laid off all or most of your team. That's correct, right? If that's true for you, go ahead and put in the chat box, hey, that's true for me.
Hi, Charlie.
Yeah, man.
That's something I'm struggling with. I have a very small staff, and I've continued to pay them. Without them, I only have 2 or 3 employees. So I'm getting all my paperwork for that SBA 7A loan.
Right.
The 8 weeks of like you rent, utilities.
Right.
So that's one of my main concerns immediately,
Right.
I keep paying them, or do I ask them to collect unemployment?
Okay.
That's all.
I think that you have a couple of choices. There was an article in Fortune about what Honeywell did. Of course, that's a very big company, and did in the last recession. They came out of it smelling like a rose because they furloughed people versus laying them off. The problem with laying them off is it can cost you a lot of money to lay them off. The problem is if you don't lay them off, you're paying them to be on a staycation. The most ideal, Steve, is that you get the 8 weeks or 2.5 times what you paid on your payroll, that you can pay them for this time period, and that loan is forgiven. That's golden. I have to say I would be hesitant to just say goodbye. But this is also a situation where you have individual conversations. Have you had individual conversations with them about where they stand? Because there may be somebody, I don't have to have the money. I can be furloughed and come back when we're ready. Have you had that kind of conversation yet?
I've discussed with the staff that I told them right away that we pay them for 3 weeks, and then
Yep.
evaluating it. And
Right.
by Friday of this week, I'll be giving them more information on when I think we can open, what we're going to do with their pay. So all their friends and other officers have been laid off. So they're very appreciative verbally that we paid them for 3 weeks. So I think they know if I don't get that loan, I obviously am going to lay them off.
Okay. Well, here's the thing, Steve. You have to realize that loan, are you doing it through your local bank?
Yes.
Okay. That loan can take weeks to process.
Yeah.
Okay. Weeks. And, are they going to come back and pay you? Get this 8 weeks. Yeah. So you just have to make this conscious decision. I'm going to pay my team members when they're not working in exchange for extra hours when they do. Now, this was a plan that Lee Sheldon put together. A friend of mine is a periodontist down in Melbourne, Florida.
Yeah, I know, he's great.
And Lee had the idea of, well, we don't have enough work for you. We will loan you the money so you can continue, and we will work extra hours, because we work extra hours to kind of catch up over a period of time to, quote, repay it. Let me, Steve, I will pull that together. Anybody else wants that, let me know. And I will pull that together and share that with you, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, man. But, a couple of points.
An article I just read said, if you're depending on that money from that loan to pay your staff, it's not a good idea.
And I think that's accurate.
Yeah. Can you do it just for the utilities and other things without doing it for the staff?
Well, now remember something about that loan. I want everybody to remember this. I haven't gotten to it yet, but remember this. That payroll protection plan allows you to borrow money from the SBA at like 4% or less to keep people employed. It's going to last for about 8 weeks. You have to apply for it, but you can apply for it to be forgiven. Did everybody get that?
Yep.
It can be forgiven. So it's like government's going to pay my team. But it also does apply to utilities. It applies to mortgages. I'm going to get that in a few moments, okay? In the chat, I'm seeing some things about, for example, about SEO. And unfortunate part about SEO right now, it's fifth down the line related to priority on your online presence. I'll briefly go through what those priorities are. Google continues to shape search in a big way. So the first thing is that there's Google pay-per-click ads. The second thing is in Google My Business. So you need to have a very flourishing Google My Business place online. The third thing is reviews. The fourth thing is content. And lastly is SEO. So when you think about this, SEO used to be the big dog. It used to be in front actually of pay-per-click. It's fallen. That's not for discussion right now, but you might want to consider what your SEO factors will do. The best SEO you can do, by the way, is by answering questions that patients ask and then post them on your blog. So, Nelson, you talked about discussed income expectations, reduction of hours. Yes. By the way, if you've already laid off your team and you rehire them, you can still apply for this loan. Again, let me state, I'm not an attorney. I'm not an accountant. I am just trying to make you aware of things that are there so you can go to your legal counsel and your CPA on getting specific help. But I wanted to make you aware of what the things are. So first thing is play defense. Borrow the money, especially the forgivable loans, because that's like, I won't call it free money because we're going to pay for it. But it's what we have to go for next, okay? So let's talk about your sources of cash. First thing up, your home line, like your credit, your practice line of credit, sell personal investments. If you had to, it's not a bad time to sell bonds because they've gained in value. Your health savings account, your Roth IRAs, loan from personal cash, loan from your family limited partnership or LLC, a bridge loan from your bank. A bridge loan, we're talking about bridge loan from your bank. So how could you use a bridge loan from your bank? A bridge loan is to tide you over until your payroll protection plan monies came back. So that way you could repay it that way. So that's another concept for you to keep in mind. And obviously you can loan from your retirement plan. We're going to go into these a little bit. So what can you get your tap into your insurance for any losses? Generally, your overhead, your general practice protection plan does not provide for this. They may provide for business interruption. Often they won't for things like this. However, your general liability policy may have business interruption provisions, and you need to read it carefully or have someone who knows how to read it carefully. And it may include coverage for this business interruption resulting from a pandemic. Just be aware you might have to fight the insurance company because they're scrambling too to get that benefit. But if it's there, you'll eventually get it. So some points: student loan interest, freezing the interest immediately, and giving student loan borrowers the option to suspend payments for 60 days without penalty. You have to request it. Again, I'll give this to you. The employer retention tax credit, a payroll tax credit equal to 50% of wages paid by eligible employers. So that includes you if you have practically 100 fewer employees. Qualified wages are 100%. So it's up to $10,000. Health plan expenses are included in computing the credit. This is something for your accountant you to work on. Delay of employer payroll taxes. Another good thing to have. Carry back on net operating losses. If for some reason you had operating losses in a corporation, an LLC, so whatever it is, if you had a loss, you can carry it and you can carry back to those losses that you had in 2018, 19, or 20 can carry back up to 5 years to recoup in taxes you've already paid. Now, hopefully you hadn't had losses, But if you had corporate losses, no matter how you got there, this may be something you want to talk to your accountant about. Again, doesn't have to be right away, but it's something to keep in mind. How many of you had heard of this one? Okay. Well, I hope that this might be beneficial to you. If you've made it leasehold improvements, or you've done things to improve property, that is eligible for immediate expensing. So that's another thing that you can be aware of. Individual income tax rebates. This mostly won't apply for you guys because of your gross income levels. However, if your adjusted gross income is $75,000 or less, as a single, or $150,000, you lose all this. Anyway, is this something that a number of people will get a benefit from? Student loans made by the practice are tax-free. Qualified student loan payments made by the practice directly to a lender or an employee to be used for loan repayment are tax-free if made during 2020 to a maximum of $5,250. I researched this stuff, guys. So there's a lot of stuff. I'm going to assume that some of this stuff you've not heard of. Obviously, there's a lot that you have, and I'm trying to add to your arsenal of possibilities. You can borrow money from your retirement plan. However, if you take money and repay it within 3 years, it's like copacetic, but distributions are counted as taxable income. You just don't have to pay the penalty on it. Again, you're going to try to not have to do this, but if you have to, that's another source for you. If you're older, there's something called an RMD, which is required minimum distributions. And that is if for doctors after reaching age 72, now it's age 72, which means you have to take a certain amount from retirement accounts. So again, they changed the age. Anyway, the provisions are waived for this year. If you don't itemize your deductions, which I'm guessing that everybody does, so this probably doesn't apply to you, but you can get above the line deduction for charity contributions. So, government programs. The number one rule is to move fast. Gather your documentation and apply because it will take weeks. If you have a local bank that participates, use them. The Family First Act, which starts a few days from now, will allow you to pay your employees some or all their pay as sick pay leave if they or someone they take care of has coronavirus symptoms or they have children whose schools have closed. You'll receive tax credits, full reimbursement of this expense. Again, consult with your accountant. Okay. The Paycheck Protection Program amounts to forgivable loans. Again, it's 2.5 times your average monthly payroll of 2019. And by the way, this can include you as a W-2 employee if you're coming from your corporation. Again, consult with your accountant. Uses of the money. This is what we talked about earlier, Steve. Payroll, salaries, paid sick medical leave, insurance premiums, mortgage, rent, and utility payments. So this is something that you should line up to get no matter what happens, simply because I think that it's important for you to have it available. To me, this is something that's, for now, it certainly helps a lot. So again, consult with your professionals. But there's also something else to remember. I apologize. My magic with my buttons didn't do so good there. My apologies. After receipt of your loan, you have to ask for loan forgiveness of the actual amount of payroll, mortgage, rent, and utility payments that occurred and paid during the 8-week period following the granting of the loan. So do not assume it's automatic. It is not. You have to apply for it. So you would apply for it immediately following the granting of the loan. Is this making sense? There are SBA, other SBA loans that are going to come that are available. The advantage of working with someone who's been down that road is they may be able to speed this up. I want you to let me know if you have a need for help with that, need help with that. Okay. Yeah. Zach says, I signed up for the SBA loan because the rent will always be there. Yes. Yeah. And for sure. Okay. We've been going for a while. I want to entertain questions. So I'm going to stop sharing here and then simply let you speak. Anyone have any questions or thoughts, issues, worries that you would like to talk about? Steve, what you got?
Well, you covered a lot of the things I've been mulling through in my head and discussing with my wife. So it's good to hear it from you and Michael, who gives me the energy and the confidence to act on these things that I might have been wavering on or procrastinating on.
Yes.
It made it clear.
Yeah.
Charlie,
yeah.
Just a question about, you mentioned some references to perhaps a change of the marketing focus, whether it's dentistry or some other healthcare professional. Can you elaborate a little bit more than what you see perhaps the refocusing of dentistry post coronavirus? And
well, post coronavirus, I think that the marketing is going to need to be about what's on the public's mind, and it's probably I need to get the stains. Getting the stains off my teeth may not be that important to me. Now, for some people, it might be, but I think we're going to be talking about immunity, health more, and I think we're going to have to be assuring our patients of safety when they come into our offices. Specifically to that, like for example, I don't think that we can go out and start marketing cosmetic dentistry right away, and I think that we're going to have to keep our finger on the trends. So one of the things that you can do is just to track your patients. When you talk to your patients, ask them what's on their mind. One tool, by the way, is to use video emails. One of the things that I think there's a misconception about, as long as you're not talking about a particular health condition specific to that patient, the HIPAA rules don't apply. So there's nothing to stop you from talking about general stuff. When you start to get into individual situations, it's a different story. This is where a phone would be a better tool for you to use. So Nelson, I think that it's going to vary individual to individual. It's going to vary based on what the marketplace is telling us. And one of the best ways to find out what the marketplace is telling us is to talk to our patients and find out what's on their mind. And let's market to that.
Charlie?
Yeah.
To Steve's point, and I know Steve pretty well, and he wants to do the right thing.
Yeah.
But I believe that the overriding concern that everyone who owns a practice has is for their employees' benefit, to make sure that office stays intact so that they have a place to come back to.
Right.
And if you spend all your money on payroll and you're not going to get it back and you go broke doing it, it's nobody benefits.
Correct.
As far as marketing is concerned, I agree with you. I think that immunity is going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
If you go and try to buy products like elderberry, turmeric, curcumin, all kinds of nutraceuticals that boost your immunity.
Oh, those things are going nuts.
Right.
They're
You
sold
can't
out.
get them.
Can't get
Yeah,
them.
you're sold out. Well, that tells you what the market's saying. The
Right.
market is saying that people are interested in anything that they can do to boost their immune systems. Well,
Right.
guess who does that? We do.
Right.
So either by periodontal treatment, reducing inflammation periodonally, or by things like dental sleep medicine, which encourages better sleep, which we know has a huge effect on our immune systems. So I think
Completely so, yes. Yep. And I think it's points well made. One of the, what are people buying? That kind of shows where their thoughts are, and that's a good point. But the other thing is I started out this with saying, cut, be a bush hog, not snippers. Because your first priority has to be yourself and your family and your practice. And we dearly love our teams, but the thing is that they don't think about us quite like we think about them sometimes. And then you'll see team members that we think love you, adore you, all for you, up and quit. You go, what the hell happened? I always liked her. I thought we were doing great. They don't think about the practice like you do. You have to think about your practice, preserving it, conserving it, and, remember, you get kicked in the teeth by not making the decisions that you should make. You could decide that, well, I'm going to stick it out, or you could, as Nelson suggests, I'm going to reduce your pay, or you're going to get fewer hours, or you need the job. Great. I'm going to loan you the money for the hours you aren't here, and then we get back, you'll make them up. Now, every state has different laws about that. So, Steve, you're in Massachusetts, so I'm not sure what the state law is, how it's set up. In Florida, this is fine. You do need to sign a loan document, but that is another choice. So, just something to keep in mind. All right. Now, earlier I asked you to note your 3 biggest issues going on, your main concerns. Anybody have a question like that before we adjourn for today? And by the way, we resume on Thursday. We're going to talk about other subjects besides defense, although we'll bring these up as we need to. Anybody have a pressing concern there? If you do not, I'm going to put a message in the chat of my email address, and I'd like for you to email me. And this is my personal email. I'd like you to email me your, if I can spell, put on my old man glasses. Any of those with theirs. Nelson says, well, you covered mine. That's great, because that's what we're trying to do. Please email me, by the way, email me those or topics you'd like us to cover. So anyway, I told you it'd be about an hour, and we've gone past that a little bit. Anybody else have comments, thoughts, opinions, ideas that you'd like to share with us? All right. So we'll see you again on Thursday, same time, 10 a.m. If you need a mental bolster, email me and we'll get on the phone and we'll chat. All right, my friends. Thank you for being here. I'm doing this to help the profession I love. And I hope you guys are doing okay. Thanks for being here and goodbye for now.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.